Billionaire CEO's luxury car was hit by a poor girl. What he did next shocked everyone. She didn't mean to crash into a Jaguar. But when the frosting splattered across its hood and the door opened to reveal the man behind the suit, she knew this wasn't just a dented car. It was the moment her whole life would change. "You hit my car." His voice was cold, flat, like he'd never spoken to someone like her before. She was still holding a crushed cupcake in one hand. "Technically, it was my delivery cart," she whispered. He raised his phone. "I'm calling the police." She stepped in front of him, apron stained, hands trembling. "Wait, I have a better idea. I'll pay you in cupcakes." He stared, like she was some unsolvable problem. And maybe she was. Because this wasn't just a mistake. This was the beginning of a true love story. "This story is for me." She was always late. Late to school, late to sleep, late to her own life. Not because she didn't care, but because the world never slowed down long enough to let her catch up. Alice Oliva ran a coffee cart with one working wheel and a heart too big for its hinges. She wore an apron stitched by her grandmother, shoes that had lost their color, and a stubborn hope that someday, maybe, things would shift. Her mornings started before the city blinked awake. Baking, cleaning, calling delivery clients, caring for her grandma, chasing her sister out of online drama, fighting bills she didn't create, and whispering prayers to a sky that never answered. But she never stopped smiling, because the people who break quietly often learn how to laugh the loudest. She wasn't supposed to be on that corner that morning, wasn't supposed to be on the phone, he wasn't supposed to push the cart too fast. But the thing about life is it never waits for your perfect timing. Her grandmother had just said, "Don't be late, Alice." Then gravity stepped in. The cart rolled off the curb. The bumper of a shiny Jaguar met its match in a frosting-covered tray. And in 5 seconds her entire world rewrote itself. The man who stepped out of the car wasn't just irritated. He looked like he'd never spilled a single drop of anything in his life. His suit cost more than her rent. His expression? Blank as a closed boardroom. "You hit my car?" He didn't blink. And Alice, well, Alice did what poor girls with nothing to lose sometimes do. He made a joke. "I can pay you in cupcakes." There was silence. Then the stare. She was standing in the middle of the street, sticky fingers and broken pride, trying to explain the economics of caramel drizzle to a billionaire. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that man hadn't smiled in months. Hadn't felt anything but numbers in years. And somehow, this chaotic girl with a frosting-stained napkin cracked something. Because while she thought she was just saving her business, he thought he was just indulging a charity case. Neither of them realized they were already rewriting each other's lives. And the only question left was, how long can a heart pretend it doesn't want something real? Chapter 1, The Cupcake Deal. She didn't sleep the night before. Alice lay on the couch with her apron still on, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow, lazy circles. Her grandmother had already gone to bed. Her sister was on her phone, earbuds in, whispering to some boy who probably didn't even spell her name right. But Alice couldn't stop hearing the way he'd said it. "You hit my car?" It echoed like a courtroom verdict. She kept thinking of his suit, his voice, how even his silence had money in it. And then she remembered her own voice, trembling but ridiculous. "I'll pay you in cupcakes." Cupcakes? What kind of grown woman offers a billionaire cupcakes instead of cash? A desperate one. A poor one. A woman trying to hold her life together with frosting and flowered napkins. Still, he had said yes. 7:30 a.m. daily, no excuses. And so, before the sky even thought about turning blue, she was in the kitchen. Whisking batter like it could save her. Grinding beans like her life depended on their aroma. She was going to deliver those cupcakes. With pride, with dignity, with hopefully no tripping. The elevator at Fisher Corp gleamed like it was allergic to fingerprints. Alice stood in it holding her tray like a shield. Her apron had a new patch. Her shoes still squeaked. And her nerves? Screaming. She repeated it under her breath. Double mocha, 2 croissants, gluten-free muffin. Don't die. The receptionist on the executive floor barely glanced at her. She just pointed with her chin. She knocked once, then opened the door with her shoulder. There he was, Thomas Fisher, behind a desk that looked like it had its own mortgage. He didn't look up. You're late. 7:31, she said. Still counts as 7:30 in 48 states. Nothing. She set the tray down carefully, like it was sacred. Double mocha, made with artisan beans, she said. 2 flaky croissants so golden they deserve passports. And 1 gluten-free muffin that cost me my will to live. He finally looked at her. She took a sip, bit into the croissant, chewed like he was reading a financial report. It's edible, he said. Alice stared. That was almost a compliment. Less talk, more punctuality. She smiled, not because it was funny, but because if she didn't, she'd cry. As she turned to leave, she bumped her elbow into a ceramic vase in the hallway and nearly turned herself into a modern art sculpture. Smooth, she muttered to herself. The next day, she was there at 7:28. He glanced at his watch. Still late. She squinted at him. You need a sympathy muffin with leave me alone frosting. Every morning after that was the same. Cupcakes, coffee, cold replies. But by Wednesday, something changed. She handed him the muffin with a note. It contained traces of humor. Please alert us of any allergies. The next day, he handed the cup back with a sticky note on the sleeve. No side effects. You may proceed. It was the smallest thing. But for Alice, it felt like someone had cracked a window in a room with no air. By Friday, she was exhausted. Grandma had been sick all night. Her sister skipped school. The neighbor's cat had thrown up in her oven. She arrived with bags under her eyes and her hair tied in a desperate knot. Here's your survival kit, she said, setting down the tray. Mocha, croissants, muffin, and 1 coffee cart girl in zombie mode. He stared at her. You look disorganized, and you look like the villain in an illegal drama. We make a good team. She noticed a photo on his desk. A young boy, blonde, with a dog. Your son? My nephew, Seattle. Looks like the kind of kid who likes marshmallows in his cereal. You talk too much, and you don't talk enough. But don't worry, I'm keeping track. So far you've said 57 syllables this week. For a second. Just 1 breathless second. He almost smiled. Almost. That night Alice lay on the couch beside her grandmother again. They shared a blanket. Shared silence. Then her grandma whispered. Did he smile today? Alice smiled into the dark. Not yet, but I think he might soon. And with that she drifted off. The warmth of coffee still lingering in her memory. The beginning of something she couldn't name. Not a romance, not yet, but something softer than routine, and far more dangerous than hope. Because deep down she knew, this wasn't just a cupcake deal. This was the start of a story neither of them saw coming. Chapter 2, Operation Caffeinated CEO. Don't trip, don't die, and don't look at his face too long. Her alarm didn't beep. It played the Mission Impossible theme, her sister's idea. And every morning it felt more accurate. At 5:42 a.m., Alice Olivala jumped out of bed only to step on a Lego, trip over a backpack, and land on the floor in her food truck uniform. Off to a great start, she mumbled, wincing. But this wasn't just any morning. This was day 2 of what she called Operation Caffeinated CEO. In the tiny kitchen, she kneaded croissant dough while reciting her mantra like a spell. Double mocha, 2 croissants, gluten-free muffin. Don't trip, don't die. Her apron still had frosting stains from yesterday. Her coffee cart squeaked like a creature with bronchitis. And her only real weapon? Determination with a side of sarcasm. By the time she reached the gleaming doors of Fisher Core, the city was just yawning awake. But inside that tower of glass and judgment, the air already smelled like pressure. Alice introduced herself at the lobby, breathless. I'm Thomas Fisher's official caffeine supplier, she grinned. Here to keep him from eating interns before 9. The security guard didn't smile. She was used to that. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt like climbing Mount Everest in worn-out sneakers. At the reception desk, a woman with a blazer tighter than Thomas's patience didn't even look up. "Go," she said with a nod. Alice took a deep breath, tray in hand, and stepped inside. Thomas didn't look up from his laptop. "You're 43 seconds late." She exhaled sharply. "We're measuring seconds now? You must be fun at parties." He didn't answer. She laid down the goods with a flourish. A double mocha kissed by angels, croissants so crisp they practically sing, and a muffin that cost me a small piece of my soul. He took a sip, chewed. "That's a different coffee. New beans, stronger roast." He paused, bitter. "Like you?" That almost got a twitch at the corner of his mouth. She straightened her apron. "Any feedback? Yelp review? Death threat?" He glanced at the muffin. "Add a cheese roll Monday." Alice blinked. "Excuse me? Was that a request?" "Don't make it weird." Too late. She scribbled it down like it was a sacred contract. "Cheese roll. Monday, CEO wants carbs." By Wednesday, something had shifted. He didn't flinch when she said good morning. Didn't correct her when she sang along to her cot radio in the hallway. That day, she left a note with his muffin. "May contain traces of hope, pairs well with silence." He said nothing. But the next morning, the cup came back with a sticky note of its own. "No side effects. Proceed." Alice nearly dropped her tray. She told her grandma that night over tea. "Grandma." He left a note. "Does it say, 'I'm secretly in love with you'?" "No, but it's a start." Her grandma smiled. "One day, he'll say more than a sentence, and when he does, it'll matter." On Friday, everything went wrong. Grandma had a fever. Her sister missed school. The neighbor's cat puked in the oven again. Alice still showed up. Pale, exhausted, but standing. "Here's your survival kit," she announced. Coffee, croissants, muffin, and a delivery girl operating at 14% brain capacity. He looked up slowly. "You look disorganized. And you look like you haven't slept since 2014. We match." His brow furrowed. But this time, she saw it. Concern, buried under layers of cold. There was a photo on his desk. A boy with a golden retriever. "Your kid?" "My nephew, Seattle. He looks like the kind of boy who asks for extra syrup." Thomas didn't respond, just stared at the muffin. "You talk too much," he said finally. "And you don't talk enough. But it's okay, I keep track." She raised her hand like a tally sheet. "So far this week you've spoken 61 words. At 100, I get a prize." He actually looked amused. Later that day, Alice bumped into a man near the elevator. He was tall, expensive-looking, and carried himself like he owned things. He smiled. "You must be the coffee girl." "You say that like I'm a legend." "You kind of are. Thomas called you." He paused, grinning. Loud, overly enthusiastic, slightly dramatic, but on time, mostly. Alice blinked. That's practically a love letter in CEO language. That night, on her walk home, she thought about what it meant. Not the note, not the muffin, but the fact that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't invisible anymore. He didn't say much. He didn't smile. Didn't offer kindness in the usual ways. But he didn't throw her out either. And in a world that often closed doors in her face, that was something. Not love, not yet. But a door, cracked open, with just enough light to make her keep coming back. Chapter 3. The Muffin Note. If kindness had a flavor, hers was caramel drizzle. By Monday, the coffee cart had a new squeak, her apron had a new stain, and her nerves had fully moved out and left no forwarding address. But Alice showed up anyway, because that's what she did, even when she was tired, even when she wanted to disappear. She showed up, with muffins, with mocha, and with a note. It started as a joke. Little square of sticky paper on top of the muffin. "May contain traces of humor. Please alert us of any emotional reactions." She didn't think he'd even read it. Thomas Fisher wasn't exactly the laugh at breakfast jokes type. He was the schedule emotions for later type. But that morning, when she came back with the next day's order, there was a sticky note on the coffee cup. No side effects, you may proceed. Alice stared at it, like it was an alien artifact, like it meant something more than caffeine. She tucked the note into her apron pocket and walked out of that glass office like she'd just been handed a gold medal in emotional gymnastics. The muffin notes became their language. Tuesday, for CEOs who frown before 9 a.m. Wednesday, includes one free smile if consumed before your third sigh. Thursday, tell your eyebrows to relax. This muffin is not a threat. And every time, his response came back scribbled on a coffee cup. Signs are scheduled for 10:15. Smile pending, try again. Your muffin is late, we are disappointed. No emojis, no warmth. But Alice knew. He was playing along. And in his world, that was everything. By Friday, her deliveries had grown legs. Other execs asked for the Cupcake Girl. An assistant offered to sponsor a weekly caramel drizzle fund. Even the receptionist, the one with the robotic voice, cracked a half smile. Alice felt something shifting, like maybe this wasn't just a job anymore. Maybe she was seen. That night, her sister Camila said it out loud. "Man likes you." "No, he doesn't," Alice replied, trying to focus on folding laundry. "Then why does he read muffin notes like they're scripture?" Alice said nothing, because secretly she'd saved every one of his replies, tucked into an envelope under her pillow. Like they meant something. Like he meant something. The next week, on Monday, she added something new. Instead of a sticky note, she wrote directly onto the muffin wrapper, in caramel. "Sorry about your mood, try frosting." He didn't expect a response. But when she returned the next day, there was a sticky note. No sarcasm this time. Just 4 words. "Mood improved, thank you." That afternoon, Alice stood behind her cart in Queens, watching people walk by. Most didn't notice her. Some smiled. Few asked for extra sugar. But she kept thinking about those 4 words. They were simple, almost forgettable. But for a man who built walls for a living, that note felt like a window. Later, as she cleaned up and packed her things, her grandmother sat in the folding chair beside her cart. "I see it in your eyes," she said quietly. "See what?" "You're hoping." Alice paused, hands still on the coffee tray. "And I don't want to get my heart bruised over a man who thinks smiling is a security risk." Her grandma chuckled. "But darling, you already started falling the moment you wrote that first note." At 7:29 the next morning, she stepped into the elevator, clutching her tray, heart thudding, carrying a new muffin, a new note, a little more courage. She didn't know what this was turning into. The friendship? The flirtation? A complete disaster in a pinstripe suit? But she did know one thing. You can't build anything real without a little risk. Even if it starts in crumbs and coffee. Chapter 4. He was watching. Didn't just see the scene, he saw her. She'd had bad days before. Days when the oven broke. When bills came in red ink. When her sister cried herself to sleep. But nothing prepared Alice for the humiliation that unfolded on that sidewalk. Not even all her muffin notes combined. It was just another delivery. A catering job to earn a little extra. An upscale restaurant. High heels. Low patience. The order had called for caramel. The woman had not. "You're incompetent," she hissed, red lips twisting. "My dog has better taste." Alice tried to hold her breath and her dignity. "I can replace it, free of charge." But the woman leaned closer. Her perfume sharp, her eyes sharper. "You shouldn't even be here. People like you should stay in the suburbs, selling cheap sugar to people who don't know better." Alice's hands clenched around the tray. Not because she wanted to fight, but because she wanted to disappear. Then a voice cut through the air like winter wind. "Are you sure you want to keep having this conversation in public?" The woman turned and froze. Thomas Fisher. Flawless suit, cold stare, hands in his pockets like he wasn't even trying. "Ugh. The CEO of Fisher Corp," he said. "And the person who funds your portfolio, Mrs. Merritt?" The blood drained from her face. I didn't know. Well, now you do, and I prefer my investors to treat humans with some respect. That includes those who wear aprons. She stammered, mumbled, and disappeared into the restaurant, leaving Alice speechless. You were watching? She finally asked, blinking like she was waking from a dream. He looked at her without flinching. I was in the building, saw it from the window. Didn't take you for the street hero type. He shrugged. I hate arrogant people, especially when they pick on someone who doesn't deserve it. She tried to smile, her eyes still wet. I've heard things like that before, but not so publicly. He didn't say you're welcome. Didn't say, don't cry. Just nodded. Like that moment didn't mean everything. She walked away, tray still shaking in her hands. At the corner, she turned, got one last look. He was still standing there. Not blinking, not leaving, just watching. And somehow, that felt like the beginning of something different. That night, Alice lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan again. Only this time, it wasn't spinning. And her thoughts wouldn't stop. He stood up for her. Not with charm, not with flowers, but with presence. He saw her. Not just the girl with the cart. Not just the girl with muffin notes. What, her... The next morning, she arrived at 7:27. He didn't say anything, but there was an extra item on the tray he handed back. A tiny thermos. She raised an eyebrow. What's this? He looked at his laptop. He didn't glance up. It's a new blend I tried. Thought you'd like it. She held it to her chest, biting her lip. You brewed this? No, I supervised someone who did. Alice smiled, like it was a gift wrapped in sarcasm. Later, on the bench outside the building, she opened a thermos. He took a sip, closed her eyes. Strong, warm, a little bitter, just like him. And for the first time, she wondered, what if this isn't just repayment anymore? What if? This is the beginning of something I never knew I was allowed to want. Chapter 5. The Woman in the Red Dress. Some scars don't bleed. They dress in silk and whisper like they know you. She wasn't supposed to be there. The invitation came last minute, like a dare she hadn't prepared for. A catering gig, a formal event, a whispered name on the phone. Fisher Corp is sponsoring. Her stomach dropped. There were 100 Fishers in the world? It didn't have to be him, but it was. The Etoria Grand shimmered like a dream she didn't belong to. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and a dress code that said, "Don't bring your doubts in with you." Alice brought them anyway, along with a box of macarons and a heart wrapped in duct tape. She wore black pants, sensible shoes, and a blouse that barely passed for event appropriate. She kept her head down, let the other caterers handle the front. Until she heard it, "Please welcome our host, Thomas Fisher." She froze mid-frosting. A spoon dropped, her breath caught. He was at the podium speaking softly, graceful, controlled, dangerous in that quiet way of his. Alice turned away, focused on the candy table, pretended she wasn't shaking. But then, a shadow, a woman, elegant, poised, terrifying, hair in a perfect knot, champagne glass in hand, eyes like polished mirrors. "You're the one who hit my son's car." Alice turned slowly. "Excuse me. And now you bring him coffee every morning. Don't look so surprised. I pay attention." Alice tried to smile, failed. It was a small accident, and the coffee was part of a deal. The woman gave a tight smile, humorless, surgical. "Let me be clear. Don't make a move. Don't mistake kindness for opportunity. You don't belong in his world." Her throat tightened. She tasted shame, like metal and sugar. "I'm not trying to..." "Of course you are. Sweet girls with sad stories always think cupcakes can climb marble staircases." Alice bit her tongue. Chase felt heat behind her eyes. "I came here to work. That's it. I bring your son coffee, not proposals. This isn't personal, just fact. Our world has walls." Alice nodded. She took a breath, then said quietly, "Then maybe your world needs a few doors." The woman walked away, graceful as ever, leaving a bruise that didn't show. Alice stood there, alone, surrounded by sugared almonds, and strangers. For a moment, she thought about walking out, just vanishing into the night with her pride still mostly intact. Then she heard it again. "She talked to you, didn't she, Thomas?" His tie loosened, his eyes apologetic. "Your mother has a talent for turning compliments into casualties." Alice crossed her arms, holding herself. "She said I don't belong. I should have warned you. You knew she'd find me. I didn't think she'd target you." Alice gave a brittle laugh. "She called me a cupcake climbing a staircase." "She's not wrong, you do climb." There was a pause. Soft, fragile. Then she whispered, "I liked you." He looked at her, startled. "I like my peace more, and your mother doesn't go well with that." He nodded slowly, almost smiled. "I get it. I'll finish the desserts, quietly. Don't worry, I won't stain your reputation with whipped cream." She walked back to the table, but he didn't leave. Just stood there, watching her keep going. Pride wounded, face calm, hands steady. She didn't cry. She didn't crumble. She stayed. Later that night, at home, her grandmother asked, "Was it a good event?" Alice stared at the ceiling. "I met his mother. She thinks I'm a stain on her son's life." Her grandmother didn't speak right away. He just reached out, touched Alice's hand. "And how does he see you?" Alice closed her eyes. "I'm not sure, but I know he watched me." And he didn't look away. Chapter 6. The Thermos and the Truth. It started with silence, but he stayed with intention. Alice didn't expect him to come. Not after the gala. Not after his mother's words sank into her skin like thorns she couldn't pull out. But the next morning, there he was. Jeans, t-shirt, a different coffee cup in hand, standing beside her tiny cart in Queens like it was the center of the universe. "Here to scout the neighborhood?" she asked, trying to steady her voice. He shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe I came to see the girl who's been haunting my schedule." Her hands stilled over a tray of cookies. "So, market research? Or emotional confusion?" "Both," he said. She handed him a sample cookie. "Any discount for remorseful CEOs?" "Only if they ask nicely, and wear jeans." He laughed, really laughed. And for one moment, the sidewalk felt like shared ground. Not rich versus poor. Not corporate this cart. Just them. That week he came back. Again and again. Once with a bag of sugar she'd mentioned running low on. Once with a book he said he didn't like, but maybe she would. Once just to lean on the cart and say, "You're late." He didn't need muffins. Didn't even drink the coffee sometimes. But he came. Alice didn't say what it meant out loud. But her grandmother noticed. "You're humming again," she said one night. "I hum. Not since your last heartbreak." Alice kept kneading dough, pretending that wasn't true. One evening, he brought something new. A silver thermos. Cupcake drawings on the label. A note tucked into the handle. "Daily dose of human tolerance, shake well before socializing." Alice stared at it. "Worried I'll sue you for excessive personality?" he teased. "If you do, make sure the lawsuit comes with caramel drizzle." He didn't laugh, not this time. Just stared at her with that unreadable look. Then sipped the coffee she handed him. "Not as sweet today," he said quietly. She blinked. "It reflects your soul." "Well," she smirked, "I can make it sweeter tomorrow." They didn't talk about the gala. Not directly. But it hovered like steam from a half-drunk cup. When he mentioned his mother again, it was in passing. "She's complicated. She's mean." He smiled faintly. "She's both." Alice sighed. "I don't fit into your life, Thomas." "You don't have to. You just showed up. And now I can't stop watching." He came to her house one day, unannounced, holding pancakes in a box and hope in his hands. "Made them myself," he said. Her grandmother raised an eyebrow. "Are you the infamous Mr. Fisher?" "Depends. Infamous for what?" "For being the reason she burns her croissants." He laughed. Earned his first real point. They invited him in. He stayed for coffee, sat in a chair too small for his posture, looked around at a home stitched together by love and late nights. He saw her grandmother's wheelchair, her sister's backpack, the post-its on the fridge that said things like, "You're doing fine," in pink marker. "It's small," Alice said. "It's real," he replied. As he left, she walked him to the door. They stood in the hallway. Neither spoke for a moment. "Thanks for letting me in," he said. It wasn't a favor, it was inevitable. He paused. "What if I want more than coffee deliveries and smart remarks?" She didn't flinch. "Then you'll have to deal with your mother, your reputation, and my pride. I've always been good with challenges." He stepped back and smiled. "We'll see," and closed the door gently. Inside, she leaned against the wall. Thermos still warm in her hands. It wasn't love, not yet. But it was becoming something she couldn't name. And maybe that was enough to keep going. Chapter 7. The Foundation and the File. You built something with crumbs, and I couldn't stop watching. It started with a folder. Nothing grand. No confetti, no ribbon. Just a plain folder with her name typed on the front, waiting on his desk. When Alice walked into the Fisher Corp office that Monday morning, flower on her sleeve, courage in her chest, she didn't expect anything to be different. But he was already there. Rolled up sleeves, reading glasses halfway down his nose. "Morning," she said, setting down his mocha. He didn't look up. She blinked. "You're being very dramatic. Should I prepare to be fired from a job I technically don't have?" He pushed the folder toward her. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside, pages of notes, charts, budgets, a mission statement. And at the top of the first page, the New Start Foundation. Proposal draft. She read in silence. Funding for women-owned micro-businesses. Mentorship programs. Emergency grants. Resources for women who had once stood where she stood. Overworked, overlooked, underestimated. What is this? Something I started the day you left that muffin that said, "Includes free resilience." She looked up, heart thudding. "This is real?" "It will be. If you say yes." "Say yes to what?" He leaned back in his chair. "To running it, leading it, becoming the first director." Alice's mouth opened, then closed. Then opened again. "Me? Who else?" He said simply. "You built something with crumbs. You've kept it alive with sweat and humor and stubbornness. That's exactly what this foundation needs." She stared down at the folder. Her name, her ideas, her chance. But something inside her twisted. A flicker of doubt, of fear, of memory. Thomas. Why now? Why me? Why this? He stood, walked to the window. He paused before answering. "Because I had you investigated." Silence. Cold. Sharp. "What?" "Back when you first started showing up every day, I asked Becky to run a background check. I wanted to know who you were, why you mattered to me." Alice stood, the air sucked out of her lungs. "So all of this, the notes, the pancakes, the project, was that guilt?" "No," he said quietly. "It was awe." She didn't speak. "So he did. You live in Queens, care for your grandmother, support your sister, dropped out of college but never dropped your dream. You never missed a rent payment, never gave up, and still you had time to write stupid little notes on muffins." He turned. It wasn't pity. It was the first time I saw someone do more with less and never ask for applause. She sat back down, still shaken. "I should be mad? Are you?" "I don't know yet." He nodded. "But I am serious about the foundation. About giving it your voice, your heart." Alice looked down at the folder again. She whispered, "This could change everything. Is supposed to." That night she walked home slower. Not because she was tired, but because her world felt bigger and terrifying and wide open. She sat on the couch with her grandmother, folder in lap, heart in her throat. "He wants me to run something," she said. "Do you want?" Alice hesitated. Then, "Yes, but I'm scared." Her grandmother smiled gently. "That's how you know it's worth it." The next morning, she returned to his office with 3 pages of scribbled notes. Ideas for partnerships, community events, A launch day in Queens. He read every word, then looked up. This is more than I expected. It's not everything, she said softly, but it's enough to show I'm serious. And so am I. He handed her a small package, wrapped in gray paper. Inside, a silver keychain with a letter A engraved. And a note, just a reminder that you already hold the key to big things. In that moment, she didn't just feel seen. She felt trusted. Not just as a girl who brought muffins, but as a woman who might just change something bigger than herself. Chapter 8. The Galanite question. He didn't ask her to impress anyone. He asked her to be seen. She had said yes to the foundation, to the plans, to the purpose, but she hadn't said yes to him. Not yet. And when the invitation came, it felt less like a question and more like a test. It's just a dinner, he said casually. A quick investor retreat, one welcome party, that's it. I don't have clothes for that kind of thing. I can send a card. It's not about clothes. He paused. It's about being judged again. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. He saw it in her eyes, the ghost of red dresses and cruel words, of ceilings that never quite stopped falling. So when she finally said, "All right, I'll go, but if I spill wine on a billionaire, you're pretending it was performance art." He smiled and replied, "Again." The resort was stunning, soft-lit, tree-wrapped, and too quiet. She stepped into the lobby and instantly felt out of place, like her sneakers were too loud, like her lungs took up too much space. But when she opened the door to the guest suite, a long burgundy dress hung, waiting. Simple, elegant, her. "You did this?" she asked later. "Becky did, but I approved it. She wanted sequins." "And you?" "Thought you didn't need to compete with anyone, just shine." She looked away. "That's dangerously sweet of you. I'm evolving." At the gala dinner, the ballroom glittered with high ceilings and low expectations. Alice held onto his arm like it was an anchor. "What if I fall?" she whispered. "Then I fall with you." Headlines: CEO and guest faint from love and wine. She laughed, and for a while it was easier to breathe. He didn't parade her, didn't announce her. He simply introduced her as a part of the team, as the one behind the foundation, as the one who believed in second chances before anyone else did. "So you're the famous Alice," one man said, sipping his champagne. "The girl who got promoted by crashing into a Jaguar." She smiled without blinking. "Imagine what I could do with a helicopter." Thomas nearly choked on his wine. She didn't miss a beat. "You okay?" "Only every time you remind me why I can't look away." Later, under the stars, they danced. Oddly, his rhythm was hopeless. Her laugh made it worse. But they danced anyway. Awkward, real, unforgettable. And when they stepped outside for air, she leaned against the railing. "That wasn't so bad." "You mean the dancing or the judgment?" "Both." He looked at her. "You handled it better than I did. I've had practice." Then his voice changed. Soft. Lower. "Alice, can I ask you something more serious?" She turned, heart thudding. "You're scaring me." "Don't be scared, just honest." He took a breath. "I like you. Not vaguely, not maybe. I want to try this. If you want that too." She looked at him. Really looked. "You know how different our worlds are. I know I'm tired of mine. It won't be easy. It won't be fake either." She stepped closer. "And if I say yes, you're not allowed to run. Then tie me to the cart." She smiled, bit her lip. They didn't kiss that night. Not yet. But his fingers brushed hers as they walked back to the rooms. And somehow, that touch was louder than anything else. Back in the room, she stood in front of the mirror, dress still on. She didn't see the girl who once dropped cupcakes on a Jaguar. She saw a woman who chose to show up, who dared to be seen. And for the first time, she didn't want to hide anymore. Chapter 9. The Leak. You can't build something new until you face what you buried. She should have known it wouldn't stay perfect. The silence was too kind. The looks at the office, too curious. Even Becky had smiled a little too wide that morning. Something was coming, and it arrived in the form of an anonymous email. Subject line: "Do you really know who Thomas Fisher is?" Alice clicked, and the world tilted. Dozens of documents, old headlines, internal memos, company closures, strategic layoffs, cold words, calculated decisions. Nothing illegal, everything devastating. Small businesses crushed. Employees left with nothing but boxes. The man she thought she knew had once been the very thing she'd spent her whole life surviving. A destroyer of the little guy. A master of profit over people. When she walked into his office, she didn't knock. He looked up, saw her face, and knew. "You found it." She dropped the printed email on his desk. "Did you really shut down all those places? Did you lay off entire departments just because the numbers said so?" He didn't deny it. Didn't even flinch. "Yes, I did." She stepped back. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought you knew. Or maybe I hoped it wouldn't matter, that who I am now would speak louder." "It doesn't," she whispered, "not when I have to read about it like this." He stood slowly. "I wasn't always this version. I was trained to be cold, to cut where it hurt least on paper. I didn't see people, just projections." She crossed her arms, holding herself together. "And now you see me. Yes, you changed the lens. But did you change the heart?" He didn't answer right away. "I'm trying." Silence, thick and raw. "I don't need perfect," she said. "I need honest. Then I'm yours." That night, she sat on her rooftop with a blanket and her grandmother beside her. The sky was too cloudy for stars. "Hated the awful things," she said softly. "So did I," her grandmother replied. Alice blinked. "I once threw a shoe at your grandfather's head. He deserved it, but still." Alice laughed through her tears. "Do you still love him?" "He's gone now, but yes, because he changed. Not overnight, but he showed up every day. And that's what matters." Alice leaned her head on her shoulder. "I'm scared, Grandma. That means you're close to something real." The next day was the board meeting. The one that could end everything she'd built. The rumors had spread. The whispers were loud. They questioned her professionalism. They questioned his intentions. So Alice did what she always did when the world doubted her. She brought data. She brought testimonials. She brought her voice. This project wasn't born in a boardroom. It came from a cart, from late bills, from watching women like me give up on their dreams because nobody cared. You say this was approved out of emotion? Fine, then let emotion be the reason something good finally exists. And as for Thomas Fisher, I don't stand here because he handed me something. I stand here because I earned it. And because he saw what most of you still refuse to. The room was silent, but not cold. Somewhere in the back, Thomas watched. And this time, he didn't rescue her. She rescued herself. By the end of the day, the board released an official statement. The New Start Foundation would continue, with Alice as director, and Thomas stepping back from direct involvement. He called her that night. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "Only if you leave me." She didn't answer. He just whispered, "Then don't give me a reason to." Chapter 10, the proposal that wasn't a joke. Ruined her routine, she rewrote his reason to exist. The week after the board meeting passed like a dream, just barely held together. The foundation thrived. Alice thrived. But something inside her stayed quiet, cautious. Because she knew what it felt like to lose everything overnight. And Thomas, he kept his distance. Physically, at least. He didn't interfere with meetings. Didn't text at midnight like before. But she'd find muffins on her desk. Sticky notes with awful CEO puns. A playlist of songs to survive boardroom drama. He was still there. Just waiting. Then came the Friday she would never forget. Alice stepped out of the foundation's office, arms full of documents, only to find a black car idling at the curb. The window rolled down. "Need a ride, Director?" Thomas asked, smile lazy but his eyes unsure. "Only if you're seeing Celine Dion again." "I brought backup," he said, lifting a small speaker. She rolled her eyes, got in anyway. They drove in silence for a while. A kind of silence that felt safe, shared. "Fo, where are we going?" she finally asked. "Somewhere with no email service and too much candlelight." "Thomas, if this is another surprise board meeting disguised as a date," he laughed. "I swear, no spreadsheets, just something I've been meaning to say." They arrived at a renovated barn, strung with warm lights, petals scattered on the floor, music playing so softly it felt like a whisper. In the middle of the room, a table for two. The waiter greeted them with a quiet nod. "Mr. and Mrs. Fisher, right this way." Alice choked on air. "Excuse me?" Thomas shrugged. Manifesting. Dinner was light, easy, beautiful. No business, no projections, just stories and sarcasm. But the air shifted the moment dessert ended. He stood, pulled his chair back. "You know," and said the words that would live in her memory forever. "I met you on the worst day, when cupcakes flew like confetti and I thought I was being scammed by a bakery cart. You were a disaster, but you were exactly the kind of disaster my life needed. You flipped my schedule, made me late for meetings, and made me feel something I hadn't in years." He opened a small box. Inside, a silver band with a soft blue stone, the exact color of the dress she wore the night she was first truly seen. "Ace, Olivia, will you be the CEO of my heart? The CFO of my bad decisions? My partner in muffins, madness, and maybe forever?" She burst into tears and laughter at the same time. This was the worst proposal speech I've ever heard. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes, you idiot." She pulled him to his feet. They kissed. Just as the barn doors opened and a crowd poured in, Becky, her grandmother, Camila, foundation staff, even the taco truck guy. "You told everyone?" "I needed witnesses. And tacos." The wedding came weeks later, in a garden just outside the city. Nothing flashy, no marble, no press. Just fairy lights, wildflowers, and vows that made even the waiters cry. Thomas wore a light suit. Alice wore a flowing dress, with rosemary in her hair. The guests threw coffee beans instead of rice, Becky's idea, obviously. Her at the altar, he whispered, "You changed my world." And she replied, "You reminded me I still had one to build." That night, as they danced alone under the stars, Alice looked up at him and said, "So what's next?" "You, us, whatever we decide." "Good, just promise me one thing." "Anything." "No flowers every week." "Cheese bread?" "Deal." And as they kissed, she knew. It had never been about the car. It had always been about the collision between two lives that were never meant to stay untouched. If this story touched you, a whispered reflection on love, dignity, and the quiet power of showing up. They say love begins when you least expect it. But for Alice, it began with a mistake. A dented Jaguar, a delivery cart, and a man who had forgotten what it meant to be interrupted. She didn't arrive in his life wearing pearls or promises. She showed up with cupcakes, and an apron that still smelled like cinnamon and exhaustion. He wasn't looking for love. He was looking for silence, control, a way to avoid the parts of himself that had long gone numb. But somehow, her chaos made space for his heart to breathe. They didn't fall in love all at once. It happened in layers. Over muffins, with apology notes. Over hallway glances that lasted longer than they should have. Over late-night emails and quiet dinners where nobody had to be anything except real. It happened in boardrooms and sidewalks. In garden weddings and taco trucks. It happened when he said, "I believe in you," before she had the courage to say it to herself. And it happened when she told him the truth about her fear. And he stayed anyway. Alice never wanted to be saved. She just wanted to be seen. And Tomas, he had everything the world said mattered. But none of it ever held him the way she did when she looked at him like he was more than a title. More than a suit. More than a man who once broke things, just to feel powerful. So, if this story touched you, if you've ever felt like the world saw only your mess, not your magic. If you've ever loved someone with more power than you and wondered if your worth could still reach them? You know this? Love isn't earned by fitting in. It's found in standing out and showing up, even when your hands are shaking and your heart is full of doubt. Maybe you're the Alice in your story. Maybe you're the one carrying everything and still managing to smile. Or maybe you're Thomas, learning how to open your heart, one cupcake at a time. If this story touched you, the next one goes even deeper. See you there. And until then, don't be afraid of your chaos. Sometimes, that's exactly how love finds you.